Hi folks, welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about the books that I want to read in the month of May, particularly given that May is Asian and South Asian Heritage Month in Canada. So we're going to look at some Asian, South Asian stories that have been on my TBR for some time, or perhaps that I've been putting aside, or some of them may be new to me that I'm going to be reading this month. So I have 5 books that I really want to prioritize for this month. Let's start off with the first one. For some reason, they all happen to be on my Kobo. I only have physical copies of the 2 of them. But the very first book that I am going to be reading this month is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is the National Book Award finalist. So this is a popular, very, very popular award-winning book. Pachinko is one of those like epitome of literary fictions that I have heard everybody recommend, so I'm finally picking it up. What I like about it though is it's also a historical fiction, and I love historical fiction. It's multi-generational, so follows a family for decades. So this is set in early 1900s, part of Korea that was occupied by the Japanese at that time, and we follow basically this fisherman and his daughter. I don't know much about the colonial history of Korea, but it seems like at that time, a lot of people were leaving South Korea to go to Japan for economic prosperity and whatnot. And so basically our main character is Sonia. I believe that's how we pronounce her name. She finds herself pregnant. The person who impregnated her, she can't really pursue a future with. So she ends up marrying this sickly minister who is on his way to Osaka in Japan to join the church there. So from there, this family saga really unravels. We follow the next generations. We follow how her decision to leave her homeland and move to a new country with a new man really just unravels and sets in motion what her future generations are going to experience, from economic prosperity to inequity. Apparently, some of the major themes in this book are love, sacrifice, ambition, loyalty. Also has really passionate characters, really strong, stubborn women that I love, and a lot of moral crises. So this sounds really interesting. I am about 18% through. It's a big book, so I'm almost 20% through, but I still have 8 hours to go. And it's a really, really quick read. As I'm reading this book, I'm just flying through chapter after chapter. I don't really feel it. It is fast-paced for sure, as all stories that are multi-generational need to be. And I'm quite excited about where this goes, because so far I'm feeling quite invested in the characters. I was already a little bit invested in the beginning with the fisherman's parents, so I started off with them, and then their son who was a fisherman, and now the main character is his daughter. So we're already at the 3rd generation in the first 20%. I don't know if it's going to escalate this fast through the generations for the rest of the book. It seems like we're at a bit of a slower period now, but I'm very excited to read this book. The next book that I have is by a South Asian author. It's called 7 by Farzana Doctor. It seems like it's about our main character, Sharifa, who accompanies her husband to India for what is, I guess, supposedly a life or a marriage-saving trip. It seems like she has a lot of privilege in her ancestry. She thinks this trip is all going to be about her great-grandfather and how he was a philanthropist and just his wealthy life. But what really captures her imagination is the mystery of his 4 wives who are missing from the family lore. So I'm anticipating this one to be a bit of a mystery. And apparently the time that she visits India in the story is also a time of political unrest. And there is a big feminist movement happening that speaks out against an age-old ritual of female genital cutting. So she finds herself, I'm imagining, embroiled in that. That's all I know about it. I don't want to know more about it because that sounds intriguing. So we have all the things that I like. We have difficult political and cultural situations. We have a bit of a family saga. We have mystery, and we have a female main character. I haven't heard many people talk about this, but I was looking on Goodreads. It has about 1,000 ratings, so low, definitely very low on the rating side, but it has in 1,000 ratings, it has 4 stars, which I thought is pretty telling. Once I'm done Pachinko, I'm definitely going to be picking up 7 by Farzana Doctor. Next up, I was gonna say a little bit lighter, but I don't know how much lighter it is, but I am going to be rereading Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is my copy right here. I say rereading because I have read it, but I flew through this book when it came out. There was so much hype and excitement around it that I just like flew through it. I don't think I absorbed a lot of it, and to be honest, I don't remember a lot of parts of this book anymore, and I would really like to go back and relive this book. If you're not familiar with Babel, it's a historical fantasy book. It's standalone, it's not part of a series, and it grapples with the themes of student revolutions, colonial resistance, and the use of language and translation as a dominating tool of the British Empire. So it basically is about our main character, who is this Chinese boy named Robin Swift. So this book is set in like early 1800s. So we're looking at around Regency era, perhaps going into Victorian era, around that time. He's orphaned in a village in China after an outbreak, and this British man comes in and adopts him and rescues him and takes him back to England. And on the surface, it seems really nice because now this kid has access to education. He has access to all these privileges that he didn't before, including like healthcare and whatnot. But it seems like in these like privileges that are being afforded to him, they're coming at a cost of him losing his cultural heritage. So, you know, he grows up and he goes to Oxford because this man who adopted him said that I'm going to send you to Oxford, you know, like for like free education. And Robin finds himself in Oxford and he's working inside the Oxford like translation building. Babel. Oxford is real, Babel is fictional, and it's not. But this is a place where basically Oxford has all of these ethnically and culturally diverse students who are whose job is to basically like translate texts from their countries, their cultures into English, but not the other way around. So it's a bit around stealing cultural heritage, history, and how that's just used as a form of oppression, where Robin as a main character really loses his touch with his heritage, his language he doesn't remember. Obviously Robin is not his real name either, and it leads to, like I was saying, like student revolutions. There is a bit of a fantasy in here too, so you have like some like magical elements. And I remember when I read it, I was just like flying through it and I was so into it. So I want to sit down and properly reread it. It's massive. It's like 600 pages. I don't know if I'll realistically finish it in this month, but I certainly would like to get a good chunk of the way through. One of the most important aspects of this is in Babel, the Translation Institute, there is magic, right? So there is something called silver working. It's the art of using silver bars that have magic in them, and this is what's fueling Europe and Britain's quest for colonialism. So it's quite like political, while at the same time being historical, while at the same time having fantasy. So I'm excited to reread this properly. After that, this one is, I guess, a bit on a lighter note. I have this book that has been sitting with me for ages. This is The Unlikely Adventures of Sherigo Sisters by Balikaur Jaswal. And I got this like 2-3 years ago, and I will be honest, I have started it several times, put it down because it's just not really like captured my interest. I am about 20% or 25% through this time. I gotta say, it's sadly not as captivating as I thought it was going to be, but it's about 3 British South Asian sisters, and their mum dies, and on her deathbed she basically asks them to do like a quest across northern India where they take her ashes, and it's meant to be like a bonding trip for these sisters because they're quite far apart in age and they don't necessarily get along very well. I am expecting this to be like a beautiful story about reclaiming your culture, about exploring your roots, about bonding with your culture and with one another. The sisterhood aspect of it really drew me to it. I'm not seeing too much of that here. These sisters are still bickering 30% in, and it is quite complex. You get a deep dive into each sister's like psyche and their psychology and how they function and their values, and I really, really appreciate that. I just wish the story was like a little bit more plot driven. Yes, I wish it was a little bit more plot driven. It feels a little bit too character driven, and I know that's the mark of a good literary fiction, but for some reason this is just not hitting the mark. But I am planning on getting through this book this month, and I'm really hoping that I enjoy this. And the last book that I'm hoping to read for the month of May is Homebody by Rupi Kaur. This is a poetry collection. This is her third book. This is her third poetry collection. I have her other two, and I have enjoyed them. Rupi Kaur is a South Asian Canadian woman, and she has been a bit of a pioneer in her niche, in a sense. And I have not picked up Homebody for a while. It's been out, I think, for a year or 2 years. I have not picked it up because I just have heard like a lot of mixed things about it. I've heard that her poems are really, really short. She does delve a lot into how culture intersects with, you know, your mental health, your identity, your heritage. You have conversations and poems on race, body image, self-compassion. So really like hard-hitting stuff. But I've heard in Homebody, the poems are really, really short. I think somebody on Goodreads like said that it's not a new book. It's the same book for a third time, which was, I thought it was brutal, but I don't know. I just haven't heard the best things, but I read another poetry collection in the month of April that I'll be sharing in my April wrap up. And I really enjoyed it. And it kind of just, it rejuvenated my likeness for poetry. So I'm going to be picking it up. I do like Rupi Kaur just generally and her work and her art. She has like a lot of merchandise as well. So if you're not familiar with her, Milk and Honey was her first poetry collection. Really, really lovely. And the second one was Sun and Her Flowers, was also quite nice. And now the third one is Homebody. If you like poetry collections, let me know which one is your favorite. I don't read a lot of poetry. I have to be in a very, very specific mood for it, but I think this is going to be good. All right, that's it. Those are the 5 books that I'm really prioritizing in the month of May. Hopefully I will get through them all in the month of May. Some of them like are looking really big, like Babel, but we'll see. We'll see how far I get. Let me know if you have read any of these, if any of these pique your interest. Let me know if you have read like Pachinko or Seven, because I don't hear people talk about these. Like Pachinko is an award winner, but nobody on BookTube talks about it, or at least nobody on my subscription list talks about it. If you have read it, let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for prioritizing diverse reading, and we will see you next time.